when you're on your period, you're feeling really tired, or like maybe you don't want to do as much stuff. Well, capitalism requires you to show up every single day the same way. So of course you're going to think it's a nuisance, and we haven't actually taken some time to, analyze that.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Taylor's biographer, Phoebe Taylor.
And I'm Jacques.
We just not. And welcome to Do You Ever Feel Like?
Where we ask the questions that everyone's thinking and no one's answering.
What the fuck?
I'm sorry. That was me. Okay. I'm sorry. We'll do it again.
Okay. What happened?
I'm sorry.
I can't tell if there's a delay or if you're just being like this right now.
Wait, what?
You look like you sound insane. I don't know if it's a delay or if you're just being insane right now.
I think it's both. It's both.
Okay. Oh my God. I think we should just leave that, actually. Do you want to do it again? I don't know. I don't know what happened. We're leaving it. Anyway.
Great.
Silly, happy, goofy moods over here. Well, today on the podcast, we have a guest.
That was honestly, this conversation was delightful.
I know.
That was, she's such a poised, kind human, so smart.
I know.
I felt so, calm and,
I know.
with her. That was, great.
I know. I'm always...
Yeah?
Pardon? Yes.
She, her?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you got it. I'm always so... I admire people that can, as we know, I get flustered. Not even just easily, I just am flustered.
Yes.
Especially when I get angry. It's like words just evaporate from my tongue. And I so admire educators, health educators, especially in this climate that we live in. But I'm so excited. I've known Cait for a couple of years now. We've run in the same circles. Sounds so dark and mystical. I've been playing a lot of I got 2 new Sims expansion packs. One of them being cottage living, another one being, I can't remember what it's called, but it's got to do with magic. So I've been in weird moods, man. I've been in weird moods. Anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Caitlin, she, her, is a menstrual cycle educator, cycle syncing coach, and cyclical content creator for all things menstrual and TMI. She approaches health and wellness from an evidence-based approach with a sprinkle of woo-woo. She helps passionate, intuitive, brilliant menstruators understand and work with their hormonal rhythm. Think of her as the health ed teacher you wish you had growing up. She breaks down the menstrual cycle in easy-to-digest pieces so that menstruators can finally break from feeling like their body is a mystery. She dreams of a world where menstruators view their menstrual cycles as a source of wisdom and power. So cute. I love Caitlin so much. This was such a lovely conversation and episode. And we talk a little bit at the end there, but I am so, as we know, I am so skeptical of all things and people. And especially, I don't know if this, whatever, we can deconstruct this on a later date, but I'm very skeptical of white women selling me a way to be better in the world. And I am very skeptical of people if they are not talking about the whole picture. But Caitlin very much talks about the whole picture, and Caitlin is very much not trying to sell you something one size fits all solution. But I think that is such a huge she really stands out in the sex education or health education landscape for that exact reason, because that is not all that exists there, and it's frustrating. So this was a lovely opportunity to chat with Cait.
Yes, and I think it's appropriate to say that we talk about some heavy shit in this episode.
Yeah.
You know, body stuff, abortion, etc. So
Yeah,
if
take
you
care
need
of
to take a
yourself,
second,
friends.
that's fine. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good.
It's good. We get heated. Yes, definitely take care of yourselves. And I want to mention this up at the top of the episode. We do get into it later, but I just want to shout it from the rooftops for my people in the States, and I believe in parts of Canada as well. PlanCpills.org. They are at-home abortion pills. You can go online. You can grab them. They last a good while. You can keep them in your under the cupboard for yourself, for friends, stock up. That's really what they are pushing right now. States are trying to come for this very safe, legal at-home abortion pill, and it's you are not there's a lot, they do a lot of great education. Go check it out, plancpills.org. And also we'll list that in the show notes, and I also will list a couple of like podcast resources where some of their educators talk, but it's really, really, really important right now. And
so
vote
important.
and donate and yell and all that stuff.
And volunteer.
As always.
Yep. And volunteer. And listen to this episode with Cait, which really I think is the like long-term solution.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. When we're talking about
Yeah. It's kind of like the way we were living, and then as always, the big beast on this show, capitalism and patriarchy, intervene. So anyway, yes, enjoy our conversation with Caitlin. In an unsurprising plan of, are you okay, Jacqueline?
I'm excited.
Oh, okay. In an unsurprising turn of events, right before we're recording, I bled all over my jeans this morning. So
Here we go. Here we go.
And then I thought, do I change my pants? And I thought, what's the point? I'm just going to do the same thing to another pair of pants. So, which is why Caitlin's here. Caitlin like came sliding into the DMs right after I declared to the whole world that I get my period blood all over the walls constantly. And so and just continue to. So welcome, Caitlin. Thanks so much for being here. Can you help me?
So excited. Yes. I mean, hopefully we can.
At the age of like, I think about this all the time, but like there very shortly, I will have been menstruating for like as long as I've been, like for longer than I haven't. And is how I feel about that right now.
Okay.
Like,
well, yeah. I hope that after today, maybe you won't feel.
I mean, well, okay. So I guess like my first question, and I forgot to say this, we will do an intro before we get started. But I think, I don't know, like in your own words, what is it that you do? And I guess I'm always like curious about people's like origin story. It's like what is it that you do, and like why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah. Why am I so passionate about periods? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm a menstrual cycle educator, and I am a cycle syncing coach. Although the term cycle syncing, it's getting a little. It doesn't feel quite right anymore. But basically what I do is I teach other women and people with periods about their own bodies, kind of the health ed teacher that we should have had in school.
Totally.
Because it's so much of a part of our entire lives. So why are we not paying closer attention to it? Especially when we can use it in a way that is more empowering and actually a better self-care tool than a lot of things out there.
Yeah. And like, why is that so exciting to you? Or I guess like why in your, I don't know, is there like I'm just going to guess, is there like a Spider-Man origin story about why you love working with people in periods? Yeah. What's that?
Yeah. So I feel like even in, have you ever read the Channing Nicholas book, like for astrology?
I have it
In
sitting
that,
on my desk right
yeah,
here, where so it's a
yeah.
bit
So
further than I can reach. Uh-huh.
so in that book, in my Capricorn moon section, it said, "You are here to heal your relationship with your body."
Wow.
And that is
Wow.
what I am doing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for most of my life, I've absolutely had a horrendous relationship with my body and
Mhm.
was never my friend, and basically went down this healing journey with, repairing my relationship to my body. And then one day I stumbled upon a podcast about periods, and from there I just dove deep, and because it has had such a tremendous impact on my overall health and well-being, I wanted
Mm,
to help others with that as well.
yeah.
Mhm.
Classic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that so much, and I think it's funny that you say the sex ed teacher that you never had, because I and Jacqueline, I would love to hear about your sex education in your I don't know. I'm just going to make assumptions about Jacqueline went to Catholic school.
Okay.
So I'm just going to guess, but I even in my fairly liberal-esque, Southern Ontario public school, um I I get really angry when I learn new things about my body that would have been helpful to me at the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, even
Mm.
today as a 28-year-old woman. Like it
Mm.
makes me quite angry. And like we know why.
Yeah.
we know
We do.
why they don't I don't know. I guess I don't even know what my question is in there, but like how do I guess maybe like what do your clients say? What do the people say? What are people's reactions? What was your own reaction in what I feel like is this constant learning about our bodies and our relationships? And this is just another little aside, I think it's really interesting. One of my anatomy teachers and one of my Pilates teacher trainings, Marcel Constable, put anatomy in like a really wonderful way to me. She was like, our bodies aren't like the galaxy. Like we're not going to like find a new planet or something like that inside of ourselves, but we will find a new understanding about how something works. And I think
Mhm.
that is a nice way to
Mhm.
deal with the deep anger that I feel towards not knowing that your cervix changes height and position throughout the
Yeah.
month.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So for me, for my clients, most people, they feel like they have been missing a piece to the puzzle their entire
Mhm.
lives. It's like
Yeah.
they're taught this thing. They're taught how to show up in the world, and that, we have to be consistent every day, or, that period pain is normal or PMS is normal. And then when they learn that it's not, or when they learn how our hormones are impacting literally everything about us, they, yes, feel rage,
Yeah.
rage against these systems, and also it's like a new path forward where they can ultimately care for themselves in a deeper capacity, knowing
Mhm.
that they kind of have all of their answers within themselves, because our menstrual cycle is a messenger. It's always just giving us messages and feedback,
Right.
but it's up to us to listen and understand that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so what do you think? I mean, I guess it's like we know what the answer is, but what or do you feel like it is okay, I guess maybe this is like our question for the day too. It's one thing to know something about like, oh, okay, I know when what is something I know about myself in my body? I know when I'm stressed. I know my body reacts to that in different ways. Like I know my skin does some stuff, and I know my cycle gets funky and weird in a
Mhm.
kind of any direction. I know these things about myself. I think to understand that and remember that about yourself, and I don't know, have that reflected in the moment where you're like, am I pregnant? And like you're freaking out in your bathroom, or why do I feel like such horseshit? I'm just going to I feel like crap, so I'm just going to like keep muscling through something, I think are very, like, that's a complicated thing to do, especially in the context of the world that we live in. I guess like what, I don't know, how do you start to integrate that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you integrate the knowledge, or how do you integrate what's
Both and. Yeah,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the understanding of something and like the, I don't know, I guess it's like compassion in a way, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I know this about myself, but how can I treat myself? How can I gift myself like what it needs or what my body wants?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that a lot of people get overwhelmed when it comes
Mhm.
to either cycle syncing or hormone health in general, or simply menstrual cycle education, and how to actually take some of the knowledge and turn it into real life application. And
Mhm.
so one of the first things is to simply track our cycle, and it's not tracking when your abs is great and whatever,
Mhm.
but it's, for me, I think of your hormonal blueprint, or each month is a hormonal blueprint, and through tracking you kind of start to understand those patterns. You can see
Mhm.
very clearly when those shifts happen every single month, and
Mm.
then with that knowledge we can then take the knowledge that we've had through tracking and then apply it in slow and meaningful ways, whether that be just like making sure you have breakfast and seeing how that impacts you, or, planning an entire launch around your menstrual cycle. But I think that this is how I basically see it too, and tell my clients this as well. Each cycle is a new experiment. And I know, Phoebe, you love experiments. Yes.
That's a nice reframe. That's a nice reframe. Yeah, yeah.
So every cycle is a new experiment, and we are gifted with about 12 in the year. So we set our experiments,
Yeah.
near the start of our period, or, exiting our period. And then we try out and we experiment. And then the next cycle, we have an opportunity to reflect and see, did that work? Did that help me not, go down a rabbit hole of disdain and despair? What's working, what's not. And then we get to add on every single cycle.
That's interesting. Can you talk about tracking and the apps
Yeah.
a little bit more?
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead. I know you feel
yeah.
passionately about these.
Tracking with an app is great. It's, they look pretty and you can put in all of these things. However, we can't really see clearly the patterns that happen every single month. It's like you put in all of this information, and what do you do
Yeah.
with it?
Yeah.
It just sits in your computer or gets sold. Your data gets sold,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of talk around that as well. But so apps are really great at, cultivating that habit, but less wonderful at actually taking the information that you gather and, actually implementing it into your life. So, you might put, your PMS symptoms, but do you know when they are? Do you know like how you generally feel? Do you know like when you feel productive, or when you feel, a little bit more anxious? Do you know when you feel focused or unfocused? Yeah. So I would highly recommend anyone doing or listening to this. The simplest way to do this is to just open a notes app in your phone and start writing at the first day of your next period one word or a sentence that encompasses how you feel that day. Do you feel grounded? Do you feel, anxious? Do you feel joyful? And write down that one word, and every single month start a new one, and then you'll start to see those patterns a little bit more clearly.
So smart. So smart. I have like so many questions. I guess it's like, okay, with that information, with like that tracking information, and yes, I think to bring up, I am so terrified, and I think maybe rightly so, especially when was Roe v. Wade overturned?
June.
Like it wasn't, wow.
Mhm.
I was about to say it wasn't even a year, but it's almost a year. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I became more aware, and I think a lot of people became more aware of what, not just these apps, but like any information that women are putting into their phones. Like I can't remember what it was, but there was like certain, not even just like your period apps or whatever, but like tracking your phone to abortion clinics and stuff like that, like how insidious that information is. And so that's something that I have been very thoughtful of more and more, and like I don't know, just in every way, like whatever in all the ways. But I think that's a great point of like, yes, like I do this. I have multiple apps on my phone that I put my information into that are what I find increasingly inaccurate as well, even though I've been using them for years. And my cycle is like, I am like your textbook cycle. Like I ovulate on the fourth. Should I say this on the internet? I don't know if this is like, will someone steal this?
No.
I don't know. But like my cycle is like very textbook. Like I ovulate on the 14th day. I get my period on the 28th day. But if there's like, I don't know, I have like a late night or a cheeseburger or something like that in between, that shifts, and it's like that, it makes that information like null all of a sudden. So it's like, what is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of that tracking? And causes me a lot of anxiety because I go, oh God, my period's late, or oh God, my period's early.
Yes.
And I need to be worried about that all of a sudden. And I think what I think is really beautiful about your work is like empowering like autonomy in our understanding of these things, like autonomy that's been taken from us in our education and in all of these ways. And then being able to like make decisions.
It's so funny about it's so funny about period apps because some of them will give you days predicted for ovulation. Yeah. And then if you aren't actually aware of when you're ovulating or how to track it beyond an app, the app point blank period does not know when you're ovulating. If you're not sidebar, if you're tracking with the temperature and the app uses temperature, then yes, it can calculate that. But it's just a phone. It doesn't actually know when your egg is rupturing out of your follicle. Like it can't. It's not magic. Exactly.
It reminds me of those like early apps where there was like, look at like that. It's an X-ray or something like that. It was like, why can't I do it? Remember those like early like 2009 like the beer drinking app things? It's like, why doesn't this work? It's like because it's a phone. It's still a phone.
Exactly. Yeah. So like when it says that you ovulated on day 14, but it doesn't know if you've been sick or if you've been stressed over the last couple of months or whatever. So then you get to day 28 and you're like, where's my period? Well, have you even ovulated? Like there's just so many more questions. So I wish that people had more knowledge, even just about tracking and ovulation, because it gives them more agency over their own bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something that I find and I would really love for you to speak to, is this kind of this space that you work in, Caitlin. Because I think, yes, right? Like, yes, more information, more empowerment, more autonomy, therefore more freedom, access, resources, whatever that looks like, right? But what I find really interesting about this space you work in is that usually the like format or the structure is like personal autonomy, like personal I guess we can call it like liberation. I don't really know, like personal empowerment of like what we're talking about, right? Like understand yourself, understand your body, understand your cycle. But like, I very rarely see conversation around like how this information is for everyone, menstruator or not, right? Like, how does this knowledge or how does this conversation or how do these education empower all of us in this like community that we're all a part of, right? Like, and because often I feel like the conversation is very like menstruator and doctor or menstruator and coach or menstruator and like it stays within this relationship, and it's not for anyone else or going to anyone else. And I think that's a problem. No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So it's like we have an entire society of, menstruators who are burnt out, who have period problems, who are told that they have to take on the mental load at home and at work and be everything and not expected to be impacted or to have their menstrual cycle be impacted. So if I don't have all of the answers, right?
Yeah.
But if we had the knowledge, then we can be role models for future generations of menstruators to make different choices that we may have had to do. We can have conversations with our loved ones. For example, my partner knows my menstrual cycle, if not more than I do. And so he can support me in the way that I need to and have better boundaries and conversations in a way that, is more holistic rather than like, why are you being so mean today? But then, from there, we can then spread it to more of our community and get more people involved, because you should see my comment section. The men in my comment section saying that periods are not that bad, just gaslighting everyone in my comment section. But if we can include them in the menstrual education from the beginning, then they won't be so annoying in the comments and actually support those who have menstrual cycles around us.
Yeah. I think that's so great, because I find it really interesting that like people think that like this education doesn't apply to them, right? Like it's like, if I don't menstruate, this isn't about me. It's, you know what I mean? And this is what we talk about with like, bodily rights, period, right? Or when we talk about any other kind of injustice, right? It's like racism is only for the people that are suffering, right? Or whatever. Or it's like or racism is only problematic for, a certain group of people, right? Or whatever it is. And it's like, no, like we all gain from access and to this information. Like we all are better people for it and better community members, etc. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's such a good okay, I have like 40 million things coming up in my mind. So I think I guess it's like a great tool and function of patriarchy, right? Like if we can silo this information and we can keep people quiet. I was just listening to this morning Demi Moore on she was talking about her like, infamous pregnancy photo shoot, like on the cover of Vanity Fair. And it didn't really occur to me, because it's like I didn't also realize how long ago that was. But she was talking about being pregnant. She was like, there was a time where like if you were pregnant in the 90s, like you can have like your little like an announcement photo in your like little white collared shirt, and then you can celebrate the baby after. But in between, like at no point do we ever want to see women knowing that they've been fucked. We never want to know that a woman's been fucked. How horrifying. But then even just the maybe that, I mean, so many things that, and again, it's not just women, it's like, pregnant people that menstruate. And that's also, again, I have so many thoughts,
Yeah.
but, how dare somebody ask for something, for support, and maybe we have to be empathetic towards them, and maybe they need something from us, and maybe we have to give them our seat on the bus or something like that. Like it's so patriarchy benefits so greatly by not having a robust sex education, in so many ways. And we can, like, when we talk about like abortion rights, and we talk about like reproductive health and stuff like that, but what I think is very interesting is people's, and I'm glad you brought up your comment section, Kate, because I want to ask you about it. But I find it interesting, and I don't know if it's like the TikTokification of apps where you're seeing people and information that you wouldn't otherwise interface with. So maybe that's part of it. But I also think it's like the culture of the internet has shifted where we feel entitled to other people's lives, and like it's like kind of codependency 101, like this desire to control what other people are doing and saying. And I guess, like, personally, how do you deal with that? And then, I don't know, like, it's kind of hilarious fuel at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten a lot better at it, at dealing with the trolls. Of course, I have days where I have to turn off my phone and put it away if a video is going viral, and it's maybe going viral for the wrong side of TikTok, getting somewhere it doesn't want to go. Although I find Instagram a bit worse sometimes.
Yeah. Truly, like, I'll be enjoying a lovely video and just happen to look at the comment section, and it's like, which I see transphobes everywhere, but the like, if you just eat enough steak, you won't get your period, or something like that, is a brand new one to me.
Oh, yeah. And they're in my comments literally telling like their whole life story of how their life is bad too. And it's like, I'm not actually saying that your life is not bad, but we also have to take into account our menstrual cycle and how that impacts us, where cis men don't have that, right?
Yeah. Well, and the world was built around their hormonal cycle, and not
exactly.
Not
Yeah.
Where they can do the same thing every day, and that's just like, that's just not
it's
possible.
How their bodies are made. It's great. Like, great for you. I'm so glad that you get that, but we don't. So how can we provide information and do things, lifestyle, or, how we approach work in a way that actually supports us? Because what we're doing right now does not, for a lot of people. Yeah. And so for the trolls, sometimes it just gives me a lot of fuel to my fire. I am a very nice and kind person, but there has always been this rebellious side of me where if someone is not being kind or is not being correct and speaking like they are, I have no problem talking back to you. Yeah. It's been a problem with my teachers my whole life too. But especially with transphobes or men, like, you don't get to come to my comment section and spew misinformation or transphobic BS and not expect for me to respond, because I can respond and it doesn't actually bother me. Maybe I shouldn't be, but
I think that's part of it. I think people have benefited for a long time from the, like, I don't know, whatever those sayings are, like, don't feed the trolls or whatever. But we've gotten to this place where, and I maybe this is a very dark thought, but I genuinely think, I don't think any of these apps are going to do something like actually serious about it, or even culturally we will take this seriously, until something really, 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 really bad happens. And really, really, really bad things have happened. Not to be, I don't know, horrible or whatever, but I don't know. It's such a funny, so I do think, I don't, I think if you're doing something out of like love and compassion and like fighting for people that don't have these rights that like I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
like fuck off.
In particular, because in my work I use inclusive language, women and menstruators, people with periods, people with
Yeah.
menstrual cycles, and people get very triggered about
Yeah.
that when I'm just making a general post.
Yeah.
But there are so many other corners of the internet that are just speaking to women.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to have this corner of the internet where I use inclusive language because of how many people do not see themselves as women who menstruate.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind that it actually bothers people so much.
It
Just
is
scroll.
Yeah. Yeah. Just truly just scroll. And I think to what Jacqueline was saying earlier about like, this is information for everybody. I think it was making me think of and I don't know really when this started, but I know this is like kind of like a rite of passage that trans women do. Well, they'll carry tampons around for other women just as like a courtesy thing, which is like God, like just the layers of hoops and I can't imagine. But that really, and trans women have been doing this for years and years and years. And it really pisses people off. And I think, I don't think we necessarily need to get into like deconstructing TERFs or anything like that, because I don't know. I don't know how much like space and airtime they necessarily need today, but I do find it perplexing that people are so pissed off by it. And I think I can understand a lot of like oppressive behaviors and and that one really, I really can't wrap my head around and understand, not like just where are these things manufactured from kind of thing. I don't know what my point is here, but that benefits everybody. I think, it's just it's like voting against yourself in a way, it's like we could really all benefit together, but I think capitalism and so many other things, patriarchy tells women that if you are in the room, like, you're so damn lucky to be there, and don't fuck this up for us. Think about that, about like female conservative politicians and stuff like that all the time. Yeah. Like, what Kool-Aid have you been sold? So, but I don't know, it's like keep scrolling. And also, I don't know, do you feel any kind of responsibility to change people's minds? Maybe not responsibility, or like ability.
I wouldn't say it's a responsibility to change other people's minds, but it's a responsibility for me and my community to call people out, or to make it just very clear what my specific business and page is for. Yeah. So when people come into my comment section with transphobic language and ideology, I have to make it very clear who is welcome here and what is not. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, my community is what matters. Yeah. And my community has women and menstruators, So I do it to a certain point, and then I log off and don't look at my phone.
Yeah. Okay, so your initial question, or initial slide was like, do you ever feel like you don't know how to deal with your period? And I think, I deeply maintain that my period is over when I say it's over, and I manage it for as long as I feel like, and then the rest of the world is my canvas. I don't even really know what the question is in there, but like, okay, yeah, I guess, like, what would you say to a client or somebody who I guess frustrated? Why do you think that this is such a tool and power, or tool for success. And how would you learn to love bleeding all over your jeans 5 minutes before you're supposed to have a podcast interview?
Okay, well, it's not about loving that you bled over your jeans. That happened to me last cycle. Like, that's just a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to acknowledge that there are times of your cycle that are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
A period being one of them. And
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive, and we, still have to act like we are, fine when we are literally feeling like we have knives stabbing us.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that there isn't going to be times where our menstrual cycles give us a lot of grief. However, in the way that I approach the menstrual cycle isn't just about the period.
Yeah.
It isn't just about, when you're bleeding, because your menstrual cycle is 4 unique phases. And what we've been kind of taught is that you get your period, here's some tampons, you can get pregnant every single day of your cycle. But we're missing the fact that in our follicular phase, when our estrogen is rising, we might feel more creative and more energetic. And when we're ovulating, we might feel more confident and feel like we can do anything. And then in our luteal phase, before our periods, while we can experience PMS, we can also have this ability to respect our boundaries and care for ourselves and, edit things. And there's a gift to each phase. And even when we're bleeding through our jeans, maybe if we got quiet enough, we might notice that we can connect to our intuition and actually be like, is this life working for us right now? Is what we're doing working for us? And then use that next cycle to, not change things, but to experiment with going in a different direction or trying something new.
Yeah.
And so, periods, yes, they can suck. But there's also a lot of positive benefits to having a menstrual cycle, but we're often not talking about that.
I love that. It's like,
yeah, go ahead, Jacques.
Asset based. It's like, no, I do. I think that's really great because what do we? Yeah, like we need something to combat the constant negativity, right? And like the constant, the grief or the real things that do show up every month, and then also like just the negativity that's been taught to us about, existing in our bodies every every month, and I think so. Okay, here we go. So for me, I still deal with, like, I brought up that idea or that question in response to what Phoebe shared a couple episodes ago. This idea of like, oh yeah, like this happens every month. Like, it's going to happen every month, but like you don't know how to deal with it, or you haven't built your life in a way that responds in a positive way.
Oh, it's a shock every single time.
It's a
Why
shock.
is it still a shock? Even when I get an alert, hi, you're supposed to get your period. I know so many things, and still I'm like, what the fuck?
So I like really think about that idea, and I'm like, okay, why is it always such a shock to you and Jacqueline? And like, why do you feel embarrassed about how ill prepared you are? And why, like, where is all of this coming from? Is this like this deep internalized shame, right? I am always in a situation, literally every single month, where I'm like, oh shit, I have to run to the drugstore. Like it's like a surprise, like literally, even though I know exactly. I know when it's coming. I've done cycle tracking before. I've written down my phases. I've done all of this. And yet I still have this like deep, deep, deep inside of me thing that's like, oh, fuck this thing again. Oh, fuck. I got to go deal with this shit. Like, you know what I mean? That is like very angry, gremlin, gross, mean to myself. You know what I mean? Like, that was Caitlin, help me.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can get into this because I think that a lot of us, most of us, are. The first thing we hear about periods is a negative thing. People are hormonal witches. When they're on their period, women can't be trusted, or they go insane. And we hear all of these things. We hear about that it's going to be painful. We hear that it is disgusting and smelly, and that I don't know about you, but I definitely hid my tampons on my sleeve when I was going to the bathroom at school.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because we have been conditioned to believe that our periods are disgusting, make us less than, and they're a source of our shame because they're taboo. And God forbid we leak through our pants at school. That's the most embarrassing thing to ever happen to us, right? So when we have that messaging growing up, and it's still pervasive today, how would we ever get to a place where we actually feel connected to our bodies in that way when we have that gremlin patriarchal mind going that's saying that this is not a good thing? And I also think of when you're on your period, you're feeling really tired, or maybe you don't want to do as much stuff. Well, capitalism requires you to show up every single day the same way. So, of course, you're going to think it's a nuisance if you haven't kind of unlearned the traditional senses of productivity and showing up in work and life. And we haven't actually taken some time to, analyze that and deconstruct that.
I think the mysticism around cycles and then what you're saying, Jacques, I think is so smart. This benefits everybody, mysticism around men's hormonal or male hormonal cycles. I think it's the most pervasive when we talk about pregnancy in particular. And I've noticed this with my girlfriends about how somebody might get pregnant. It's oh, it's so crazy. She missed her birth control pill for 2 months, and God himself reached down and put a baby inside of her. Isn't that insane? And it genuinely irritates me. It's no, you're only women or uterus havers are only can get pregnant for a very small window of time. What's it, 48 hours max, I think, in a month.
Well, it's okay. The egg can live for about 24 hours, but those sneaky little sperms, they can go inside and they get real comfortable up in there, and they can survive for 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, exactly.
And your fertile window,
yeah. So it irritates me so much that it's I know. Suddenly lightsabers become legal in my house.
I'm no. But this is what I mean, right? Why did I just have that reaction? Anyways, sorry.
Well, I know why. Go away is why.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
Get out of here. But I think the mysticism of that is so fucked up. It's no, she didn't magically get pregnant. There was a bunch of semen splashed up on a cervix somewhere, and then a baby was created, or not even a fetus was created. And so I think we do such a disservice to ourselves when we perpetuate that kind of language, and that's what I mean, I'm out to brunch with, and brunch is always the topic of conversation around here, because it's that's where I feel I do my biggest mystery hunting. I'm what's the pulse? what's the cultural beat at brunch? And women do it to ourselves. Actually, what was our last episode? We were just talking about that. It's we are perpetuating that mysticism. We are oh, I have my period. Oh, isn't it so this language? And we wouldn't. I think the culture has shifted where we talk where we don't necessarily shift to that language. If I was in a room with my girlfriends and I said, ugh, I am XYZ negative thing about my body, the room wouldn't say, oh yeah, same, or something like that. The room would say no, we love you. Let's talk nicer about ourselves. And I don't think we've reached that same point with hormonal cycles in any way, even male hormonal cycles. And I think I mean, it's just like patriarchy's like doing a dance because it's like, yeah, please keep being angry, please keep being mystified, please don't use the right language, please have this like very overgeneralized understanding of these things so that you don't, so that we can get more out of you, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm out of breath from my little patriarchy dance. But like I don't even remember what my initial point was, but it's when women are doing this to ourselves, I don't know, is there other, I guess a question here could be like, what other overgeneralization are we kind of making, and like how do we start for our, how do we start making these shifts on like a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. There's lots. So like painful periods is a classic example, of course. People grit through period pain. They have very heavy cycles, but they actually might have a hormonal imbalance or something like endometriosis or PCOS. And there's a lack of education around any type of menstrual irregularity or menstrual problem. And people wait so long to get support because they think it's normal. They, I think for endometriosis to get, it's something like between 5 and 10 years to get a diagnosis.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating.
And so again, it's like people don't know what is not normal and what is normal because our society perpetuates a certain belief around periods that they should be painful, cramps, I just want to eat ice cream or whatever. But, they don't seek that support. Or this is an entire different conversation, or then they go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, you're fine. Or they say, oh, get on birth control. And it's like, birth control is wonderful. It is great for so many people, but to slap a Band-Aid solution on a underlying issue, it's good for some time, but as soon as they get off, it comes back because they haven't actually gotten to the issue. Which is a huge problem, but a totally different discussion.
I'm curious about hormonal. So I haven't been on any kind of hormonal birth control in like probably 6 years, maybe 5-6 years or something like that. And I'm curious as to like, just what you see with your clients, what, I guess like, if you're tracking, how does that change? But then are you seeing a shift towards more like cycle tracking as a, like I was shocked when I got my IUD taken out, how easy it was. I just wanted to see what it would be like for a little while, and it's just been like, oh, it's very simple and it's fine. It's just I pee on an ovulation stick and I go, okay, that's great. And I think, again, I guess it's like a function of that like mysticism of like, oh, here's like, you don't want to have this information. So I guess like, what are you seeing kind of, I don't know, maybe like culturally? And then, if you are using hormonal birth control, what stays the same, what shifts as far as like tracking goes?
If you're on hormonal birth control, most shut down ovulation, so you're not ovulating. With an IUD, you may be ovulating, but the main mechanic of it is that it thickens up the cervical fluid, so sperm can't get through, and it really thins out the uterine lining. So tracking, people do say, I've gotten so many people saying that like, I'm on hormonal birth control, but I still feel like this, or I still feel like I'm PMSing or whatever. So although hormonally you're kind of muted, you still may be experiencing some patterns. So, if you want to track, I would track and just see if anything, if you do notice any kind of pattern. But in terms of the cultural
Mhm.
the vibe I'm getting, the vibes,
Yeah.
birth control vibes. I think that more people are getting off of hormonal birth control, and
Yeah.
that may just be because of the the field that I'm in.
Yeah, maybe it's self-sex, but I feel similarly, and I'm I don't know. I think that's part of that's lumped into my anger and frustration that information that I didn't get at the age of 12, because it was, you start having sex, you go and get birth control, you go get on birth control. Conversation.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah.
And so it's interesting because birth control, especially when it was created, I don't know if you know this, but the only reason that they put in a pill like the placebo pack on birth control was because women at the time didn't want to take it because they thought that not having their period was not natural, so they just added that pack in so that they could it could feel more natural. And at the time it was really great because we didn't have this understanding of our menstrual cycle, and so women could go to work or get through school without worrying about getting pregnant. But now it's like we have a lot more information about how ovulation works. And so I think a lot more people are making more informed decisions because I think most of us were, pushed on birth control as teenagers. When, I mean, sidebar on that, your menstrual cycle can take up to like 6-7 years to regulate. So they're putting teenagers on birth control who are still figuring out their hormonal grooves. But more people are kind of just getting to know their bodies and wondering and curious about coming off the pill, because a lot of people also feel a lot of side effects when they're on the pill. For me, like just my own personal experience, coming off birth control was like lifting a veil. It was like a fog had been lifted after I came off. And my mental health became a lot more easier to manage because I was able to pinpoint when it flared up in relation to my menstrual cycle. But I will note that this is an individual experience and that some people do go on the pill and it's great for them, but we just have to be curious.
In the that's interesting. So in the terrible hellscape that is the United States, what I find interesting is like my experience with this. I feel like I've been trying this. Well, do I want to talk about this on the internet? Sure. I feel like I've been trying to.
It's like the forever question here. Do I say this?
Ever. I feel like for a few years I've been trying to get off of hormonal birth control. But whenever I go to my provider and I'm like, you can stop giving me this prescription and or can you please share with me how to do this safely, right? Or how to do this in a healthy way. The reaction always is, well, are you trying to have a baby? Are you trying to get pregnant?
Yeah.
As if the only two ways to exist
are pre-pregnancy and post-pregnancy.
Yes, is without a baby and with a baby. And that is it, right? Like, and
are you a not mother or a mother?
Yes, are you a mother or not a mother? Exactly. And so it's like I find
actually I'll just a quick side. My ovulation, this is horrible. Not spawn, clearly. My ovulation tests are called pre-mom, and it makes me want to fucking die. Is that not horrible? Is that not horrible? Go away. And it's got a little baby on it. It's like I'm actively trying not to have a child at the moment.
But that's the thing. Is like that is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like the awareness of all of this. Awareness of all of these things comes with the decision to be pregnant, right? Or the decision not to be, and you find yourself, or like whatever it looks like, right? Like it's like that is like, oh, that's when I have to pay attention to this shit. That's when I have to care about ovulation. That's when I have to whatever.
Right.
And I think that obviously
Mm-hmm.
that's problematic. There's like a lot of issues with that. But I find like, so someone like me who is experiencing, frankly, harm, right, from medical providers that are continuing to kind of have this narration of this very specific way of looking at my body and my cycle, right? Where do I go if I want to, I want another way? Because I think this is the situation with so many people, right? Is like, okay, I'm just going to continue on and maybe I'll find the answer eventually, but I don't have resources otherwise that feel safe, trustworthy, like accurate, like whatever, right? Where does someone like me go?
Yeah, good question. And I'm sorry that your doctor, reacts that way, but I know a lot of my clients have had very similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, like I feel like there's a huge distrust with medical establishments, and a lot of it is what's the word? It's
Earned.
warranted,
Yeah.
earned.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, your doctor is only taught what they're taught. So they have one view of how they approach medicine and how they approach reproductive care and health, and they're not necessarily taught about the reproductive system to the degree in which they should have been. And so your doctor may just not have the information. But in regards to resources, there's lots of like fertility awareness practitioners out there. There's a really good book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility that breaks everything down. And I always recommend like naturopaths if you can find one who is similar in value to you. A naturopath is a wonderful tool if it is within your financial if you are of means to afford a naturopath or your insurance covers it. But there's also a lot of books as well. Now I will say that if you are just starting out in this journey, if you are coming off the pill, please don't be having unprotected sex until you are very confident and comfortable with looking for ovulatory signs and confirming ovulation did take place. And it can take months, and it is a commitment. So
I I again, Caitlin, I don't know if this is what you've been saying, but I am wondering if, or maybe Jacques, you can speak to this as well. With abortion rights being put on so many political tables right now, is this what, I mean, I feel this way in Canada, like I feel so, I thought I was pregnant a couple months ago, whatever. And I realized it was like the first time I was like, shit, like, not just like, I don't know, I sat on a toilet seat wrong, kind of like, and I'm pregnant all of a sudden, like panic, that thing that you're taught in school. But I had like my first realization of like, oh shit, I actually don't know where I go get an abortion here. And like, what do I do? I called a friend. But I'm wondering, I guess I don't even know what the question is in here, but like, Jacqueline, are you considering like, do you feel like your for abortion rights are significantly impacted to go off birth control? Like, and then like, it's so frustrating to me that like, that's part of the decision making as well. It's like, not just like, do I go off birth control, but like, is my access to an abortion if I need one available to me? Yeah. That's not a question.
Yeah.
That's just a concern
No.
that is in my
No.
mind.
Yeah, I know. And for a long time I was like backing off talking about ovulation and like non hormonal birth control options because because if people get pregnant right now in the States, in some states, they may not be able to get an abortion, which, you know, in terms of my work, I would never want that to happen. And so, of course, that's a part of a big part of the discussion about coming off of hormonal birth control. So, of course, we need to be aware of our abortion rights. We need to have the proper education if we decide that is for us, and or the means if something does happen and we are in a state that does not have access to abortion. I will say that, like, if you are in a state that it does not have access to abortion and you're on a birth control, you know, maybe don't come off of birth control right now. But I will say that coming off birth control and understanding your body and tracking your temperature or looking at your cervical positioning and the consistency of your cervical mucus, your body's sending you signals. Your body's sending you signals. And once you get, once you're aware of that, you know, it's a way less scary than you think it is.
Yeah, I guess it's that agency thing again. I will just add, I know we've talked about them on the pod before, but we'll add in our resource notes, plancpills.org. And I know a lot of Canadians and people, folks in the States, I don't know, this is a whole other conversation, but it really irritates the shit out of me when my fellow Canadians say, "Aren't you so glad?" I'm like, what do you think? That is their neighbor, my man. Anyway, but plancpills.org, they are at-home birth or abortion pills that you can stock up on. They do not expire. They last for a long time. Go and get yourself some. Keep them in a cupboard for a rainy day, or maybe for a friend's rainy day. Yeah, I don't know. I just...
I think
anger.
It's been really interesting to see the response living in the States in the sense of like empowerment and education. Because, I mean, I hate this. Like, I hate this. I hate that an abortion, the overturn of Roe versus Wade, is what opened the education around this, right? But now there are programs where people, guess who, moms, are going into grade schools and middle schools and are having and talking about with the school nurses, etc., with young girls around their cycles, around tracking their cycles, around ovulation, around whatever, again, and not from like the religious standpoint, right? But from the
abstinence.
Right. Abstinence, but here's how to family plan or whatever. But as a real sense of like, actually, this is something you can do because it's in order to not get pregnant so that you don't have to get an abortion. So because you live in a place where that is not going to happen for you, right? Or you have to travel or whatever, right? So, or that you don't have access to that. So that's interesting because, again, I hate that is what has kind of normalized, you know, this education or these conversations and for young girls and like for young people in middle school and grade school. But there is something, I don't know. I don't know, that I just find that interesting.
But I think that education, I think that education should have been there all along.
Of course, yes.
It's sad. Yeah. It's horrible that that's because of Roe versus Wade being overturned. But we should have had access to that information all along.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is so much more complicated now, right? Exactly. This idea of like, do I stay off birth control or stay on birth control? Do I get off birth control? Right. So much more complicated. And now I think of this week, actually, there's 13, 14 states, right? I think it's 14, where abortion is now banned. 13 states.
That gives me – I have such a physical reaction to that. Holy shit.
Oh, me too.
That's like yeah. Yeah. Yep. Donate. Go grab your plantcpills.org.
Yes.
Cait, is there any like one – is there like – do you have like a favorite like hormone fact that you like love to tell people, or like a happy – note to end on? Okay, great.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. It's not you. It's us. It's always us. But it is part of what the conversation is, right? And I think, I mean, I will say, you know, I've known. We didn't talk about this, but I've known you for a long time, and it's so beautiful to see. I mean, this is just my. I don't know, litmus test for any person that I consume anything of, but it's like, are we talking about the whole thing right now? Are we looking at the big picture? And it's so, I don't think I would have any interest in myself, which is a really horrible thing to think about. I don't think I would have any interest in my bodily autonomy if it weren't for people like you talking about the big picture, the whole picture when we have these conversations, because I have no interest in pre-mom with the baby on it, and I don't want a fucking period product with a flower on it, and I would simply rather die. And so it's so, what you do is like beyond so needed, and knowing you is just, it's made a huge impact in my own relationship with my body and my cycle. So thank you.
No,
so thank you. It's not all bad. It's not all bad. But yes,
okay.
Your fun fact, if you will.
Okay, but it's kind of a long one. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, of course.
Not long, but it's okay. Okay,
it doesn't
so
have
your
to be
menstrual
short.
cycle so your menstrual cycle has two halves to it, the follicular phase and your luteal phase. The follicular phase is called follicular because the follicles that contain your eggs are getting stimulated until one juicy egg is chosen for ovulation.
Oh my God,
after it ruptures out of that follicle, it enters the luteal phase. Now, here is the cool fact, is that follicle that used to contain the egg, it actually transforms into a temporary gland, the only temporary gland that happens so quickly in the whole body. And that temporary gland is actually what produces progesterone for the second half of the cycle. And then once your period comes, it just goes away, which I think is really cool. Yeah.
Fascinating. I love that.
Wow.
My favorite thing that I've learned from you is that men have a 24-hour hormonal cycle. And cis men have a 24-hour
can't even finish it.
I can't even I can't. I just And I will say at the same time, I do think sometimes when I'm like walking around town knowing me so well, I'm like, must be so sad if you don't, like, I feel like I have a superpower at the same time. I want a lightsaber, but also I feel like I have a superpower.
Yes.
Which is, I guess, just what being a woman is.
Oh, yes. True.
Caitlin, is there anything that you're promoting? Where can people find you? All of the stuff.
You can find me on consciouslycait.com, on TikTok and Instagram, Consciously Cait, although TikTok is more fun for me and for everyone
Cait
involved.
is why I'm on TikTok at all in the first place, because I was like, if fun people are over there, I'll go over there.
It's the best.
Aw.
And yeah, I right now the only offering I have is one-on-one coaching. So we can sit down, we can talk about, your relation to your menstrual cycle and start using your menstrual cycle as a powerful tool to, survive and I'm going to say thrive in the dumpster fire of the world that we live in. Yes.
I love it.
Gorgeous.
Mhm.
Caitlin has a workshop coming up, which you will be able to
Yes.
see when I'm just looking at when this podcast comes out. Yes, it will. Caitlin is teaching a workshop on the 25th inside of my membership in the Roots, so you can come in and see. It's called Bleed Your Art Out.
Yes.
It's about creativity and the menstrual cycle.
Yes,
Ooh.
which are totally linked. And if you ever feel like, you go through creative blocks or, you do something and you struggle with actually putting it out into the world, then your menstrual cycle might be the tool that you're looking for.
Oh, nailed it. Nailed the pitch. Yes, I'm so excited. All of Cait's stuff will be in the... What is it called? The description, where all the things go.
Show notes.
The show notes. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Wow, that was a real turn of the tables moment.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what anything is when it comes to the
I don't know. This is why it's a partnership. Very specifically. Relay race. Anyway, thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Okay, bye. Thank you for listening to Do You Ever Feel Like?
Follow this chaos wherever you get your podcasts.
Our artwork is by Simon Peng. Do You Ever Feel Like is produced by Jacqueline Wills
and Phoebe Taylor. You can follow us on Instagram at doyoueverpod.
You can write to us at doyoueverpod@gmail.com. Okay, bye!